Arogya Health Talk, where knowledge meets care. Brighten your day with wellness we share. Tune in to talk for health that's gold. Arogya story waiting to be told. Good afternoon to one and all. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the fifth session of the Arogya Health Talk series, an initiative by the IIT Delhi Health Hospital and the Academic Outreach Office, aimed at promoting preventive healthcare awareness and meaningful dialogue around real world medical issues. Each session of this series is designed to provide practical, evidence based insight from leading medical professionals, helping our community better understand and manage health challenges. Today's session explores a unique and critical subject: obesity and metabolic disorders, a crosstalk between fat and muscle. Obesity can be stressful. Too much weight can slow you down, turn your smile into a frown. Tired body and heavy mind, obesity takes peace of mind. Through this talk, we will explore how fat and muscles communicate, what goes wrong in obesity, how to keep the balance of fat and muscle for better health. With healing hands and a caring heart, welcome, dear doctor. Let the healing start. We are honored to welcome a distinguished speaker today, Dr. Nawal K. Vikram, professor at Department of Medicine and an associate dean examinations at AIIMS New Delhi. Dr. Nawal is a highly respected educator and a researcher with years of experience in advancing medical knowledge and patient care. He has been involved in research for over 2 decades. To formally introduce our esteemed speaker, I now invite Dr. Mahesh Sagar, head of IIT Delhi Hospital Services, who has played a key role in strengthening campus healthcare and guiding this healthcare talk services to its since inception. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sagar with a round applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. IIT Delhi Hospital and Academic Outreach Office is delighted to have you for the fifth edition of Arogya Health Talk series, an insightful session on obesity and metabolic disorders. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Nawal K. Vikram, an eminent physician and academician, currently serving as professor in the Department of Medicine at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Dr. Nawal is an undergraduate and postgraduate alumnus of AIIMS. He has held many important academic and administrative positions and is currently Associate Dean Examinations at AIIMS New Delhi. Dr. Vikram is a leading expert in the field of obesity, metabolic disorders, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular risk factors. His work has significantly contributed to understanding the complex interplay between fat and muscle in metabolic health. Dr. Nawal K. Vikram has been involved in research in the mentioned fields for over 2 decades and has contributed to more than 200 scientific publications, which are well cited. Some of his noted research contributions include studies on body compositions, correlates of insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, MASLD, and sarcopenia in Asian Indian adolescents and adults. He has guided more than 25 MD students till date and has several funded research studies going on. Several of his studies were the basis of consensus guidelines for the diagnosis and management of obesity for Asian Indians published in 2009. These guidelines have been revised recently, and he played an important role in the process of formulation of both the guidelines. In recognition of his research work, he has been conferred various national and international awards. Dr. Vikram received the NASI Scopus Young Scientist Award in 2010. The Department of Biotechnology of Government of India awarded him the National Bioscience Award for Career Development, one of the highest Indian science awards for his contribution to biosciences in 2012. He is also a recipient of AIIMS Excellence Award, which he received in 2013. Apart from his academic achievement, he is deeply committed to patient care, medical education, and mentorship, inspiring the next generation of physicians and researchers. On a personal front, I have known him from his MBBS days, as he was a couple of years junior to me. Today, he'll speak on obesity and metabolic disorders, a crosstalk between fat and muscle, a topic of growing importance in India and across the globe. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Naval K. Vikram. Dr. Naval.
Very good afternoon to everyone, and it's my pleasure and honor to speak in front of this August gathering. And thank you, Mahesh, for inviting me here. So, I'll get on with the topic. No, I'll use this only. My slides are here. So, now obesity is now the main focus, especially it has been there since long time, but now it's more in focus, especially after when our honorable prime minister also made a mention about it and urged our country to work on improving that or preventing that. So what is obesity? मोटापा क्या है? It's not a cosmetic problem. It is a prevalent complex. बहुत सब में है, बड़ी पॉपुलेशन में है. प्रोग्रेसिव एंड रिलैप्सिंग, ये बढ़ती जाती है और बीच में ठीक भी हो सकती है, उसके बाद दोबारा फिर हो सकता है. क्रॉनिक डिसीज, ये यहाँ पे मैं बताना चाहूंगा, ये क्रॉनिक डिसीज है. ये नहीं कि एक बार आया, आपने कुछ ट्रीट किया और ठीक हो गया. ये लंबे समय तक चलने वाली बीमारी है. Characterized by abnormal excessive fat. Fat जो है, fat amount is excessive in the body which impairs the health. So that is the complete definition. And this is, I can say, it's a mother of several other diseases, non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, as well as several cancers. So it is the seed for various other diseases. And worrying part is that it is increasing across the age groups. In children also, the obesity is increasing rapidly in our country. And initially it was thought to be a problem with a very well-to-do family, well-to-do population. But now we are seeing this even in the underprivileged population. We have not gotten over the problem of undernutrition till now. But now on top of that, undernutrition still persists. And on top of that, we have obesity. So there's a dual whammy, I would say, in our population. And so that is why it is important to look at this. So what are the types of obesity? Broadly, mainly two types. One, where the fat is distributed, it's increased fat all over the body. That the picture on the left side, that is generalized obesity. The second one is the fat which is accumulated in your belly area. That is central obesity or abdominal obesity. And that kind of obesity may be possibly more dangerous than the generalized obesity. Why? I'll come to that. How do you measure? Everybody would have heard these terms. The simplest measure is body mass index. You divide your weight in kgs by your height in meter square, you get a value. And you measure, if you have an axis, you measure how much body fat you have. You can do by several machines you might be seeing in the clinics as well as weight loss centers. You stand on that, it gives you that you have this much amount of body fat. That's a way you can measure generalized obesity. Now, how to know that you are abdominally obese? If your BMI is all right, you are within the range, but your waist is expanding. If your waist is high, then that means you are having abdominal obesity. So how to find out the waist circumference? What is the circumference? That will simply tell you. And there are some ratios also. You take the ratio of waist to the hip and or waist to the height. So what my emphasis is basically waist circumference alone or waist to your height. Why? Because if in generalized obesity, if you recall the picture, if waist and hip both are expanding, the ratio will be remaining same. It will not change. But if only waist is increasing, then the waist circumference or waist to height ratio may be a better indicator. And waist to height ratio, why I am emphasizing again, it's an indicator which is applicable, the same value of more than 0.5. 0.5 as a cutoff is applicable in every age group in both the genders. And that is why it may be more important. So keep your waist half of your height. Simply. That is the keyword. So why do we worry about obesity? As I earlier said, it is a mother for almost many non-communicable diseases. As you can see here, the economic cost. Nowadays, we talk about economic cost of everything, economic cost of disease, economic cost of development, and all those things. Now, you see here, these are some crude estimations. The economic cost of obesity, 2019, 28.95 billion US dollars, and that is projected to increase to about 81.5 billion dollars by 2030. So now you can imagine so much of the health resources are going to go into managing obesity and its related problems, and that is why it's one disease. You prevent obesity or you treat obesity, you treat or you prevent other diseases as well. So this is something I would like to introduce here, is that does every person who has obesity have the same risk? Not necessarily. As the picture says here, on the left side, the person is as obese on the right side, but everything is normal. Whereas on the right side, the person has a whole lot of problems. So now this is a peculiar situation that we see often in our country as well. Now this is a change in prevalence as we see from the National Family Health Survey. The 2015 या 16 से लेके अब देखा जाए 2019 और से 21 में 18 ओबेसिटी बढ़ती जा रही है, मोटापा बढ़ता जा रहा है, और ऑलमोस्ट कह सकते हैं कि इस समय ऑलमोस्ट 25%, 4 में से 1 व्यक्ति है जो मोटापे से ग्रस्त है. और ओबेसिटी जो है ये विमेन में ज्यादा प्रेवलेंट देखी गई है. अब उसके कई कारण हो सकते हैं. One important reason is that women undergo several physiological changes during their life. Puberty is one, when the body fat increases. Pregnancy is the one, when the body fat and weight increase. Postpartum, after childbirth, is the phase when body composition changes, the fat increases, lean mass goes down, as well as in menopause. That is another stage where body fat increases, lean mass goes down. So there are so many physiological changes happening in women over the period of time. That is why the prevalence or the risk of developing obesity is much higher in women as compared to men. In men, during puberty, the muscle mass increases, right? The kids become a young boy around 16 to 18 becomes muscular. The muscle mass increases, not fat so much. That is why they are not at risk. They are at risk because of their lifestyle. Now, this is just a heat map of the prevalence of obesity and abdominal obesity, just to give you a snapshot. Childhood obesity, as I mentioned, it is increasing, but now this was from the World Obesity Atlas. We see that 1 in 10 obese children will be from India by 2030. These are the estimates. So now this can give you a clue that to the rate at which our children, a younger generation, who will be the most productive generation in the coming future, they are getting obese and they may be exposed to so many other problems. Urban versus rural. We earlier had the notion that rural population, they are very hardworking and their dietary habits are good. But now, initially the prevalence of obesity was 5% or less. Now, the latest surveys indicate that obesity is going up to 20% in them as compared to urban. In fact, some cities in India have more than 50%. 1 in 2 are having obesity. This may be more so for the northern part of India, including our own city, Delhi. सो व्हाट कॉजेज ओबेसिटी? कारण क्या होते हैं मोटापे के? सिंपली एनर्जी इन इज मोर देन एनर्जी आउट, राइट? मगर काश ऐसा होता, इतना सिंपल होता तो फिर तो कोई बात ही नहीं थी, इतनी साइंस और इतनी रिसर्च और इतना सब कुछ करने की जरूरत ही नहीं होती। मल्टीफैक्टोरियल डिसीज, बहुत सारे इसमें फैक्टर्स काम कर रहे होते हैं। आपका जेनेटिक मेकअप कैसा है, आपका एनवायरनमेंट कैसा है, आपके घर का एनवायरनमेंट, आपके स्कूल का एनवायरनमेंट, आपके वर्क प्लेस का एनवायरनमेंट, आपका इम्यून सिस्टम कैसा है, एंडोक्राइन ऑर्गन्स कैसे फंक्शन कर रहे हैं, और आपका बिहेवियर कैसा है, साइकोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स। सो बहुत सारी चीजें मिल करके कारण होती हैं कि ओबेसिटी या मोटापा होने का कारण। तो बहुत एक चीज को अगर हम टारगेट करें कि खाली एनवायरनमेंट को टारगेट करें या खाली हम डाइट को टारगेट करें, उससे काम नहीं होगा। बहुत सारे एस्पेक्ट्स होते हैं, सबको एक साथ देखना जरूरी है। हमारी पॉपुलेशन एक पिकुलियर पॉपुलेशन है, जिसपे पूरे वर्ल्ड में बहुत सारी स्टडीज हुई हैं। तो हमारी पॉपुलेशन में पिकुलियरिटी क्या है? हमारा बॉडी फैट ज्यादा है। अगर एक बीएमआई हम देख लें, जैसे 23 kg पर मीटर स्क्वायर का एक इंडियन मेल और एक कॉकेशियन मेल यूरोपियन ओरिजिन का, उनको हम एक बार देख लें साथ में, तो क्या उनको कंपेयर करें तो क्या होगा? हमारा बॉडी फैट ज्यादा होगा, हमारा एब्डोमिनल फैट, बेली फैट ज्यादा है, हमारे स्किन के नीचे जो सब फैट है वो ज्यादा है, हमारा वेस्ट हिप रेशियो ज्यादा है। और कम क्या है? बीएमआई तो हमारा कम है, मगर हमारे मसल कमजोर है, लीन मास जो मसल, स्केलेटल मसल, वो हमारा कम है, और वेस्ट सरकमफ्रेंस वो भी हमारी कम है। कंपेयर करें अगर कॉकेशियन से, सो दिस इज अ पिकुलियर फिनोटाइप। तो हम तभी तो ये थिन फैट इंडियन बाहर दूर से दिखेगा थिन, मगर अगर आप सामने से देखेंगे तो थिन, मगर साइड प्रोफाइल देखेंगे तो बेली फैट इज मोर, right? That is the thin fat Indian phenotype which is responsible for many of the problems, and genetically we are more predisposed to have these problems. So let's come to the fat story. Traditionally हमें ये बताया गया कि fat is bad. Of course fat is bad. फैट है जो इकट्ठा होता है एब्डोमेन में, इकट्ठा हो गया, जैसा मैंने कहा कि इट इज बैड, डेफिनेटली द बैड। सो ओबेसिटी जो है, मेटाबॉलिक प्रॉब्लम्स वो कैसे वो ड्राइव करती है? सो एक्स्ट्रा फैट, आप चाहे डाइट में हो गया, मेनली तो डाइट ही एक सोर्स होता है एक्स्ट्रा फैट का, तो आप फैट इनटेक बहुत बढ़ता चला गया, उससे क्या होगा? इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस होती है। नॉर्मली आप अगर कैलोरीज लेते हैं तो शुगर, इंसुलिन जो है वो एक्ट करती है और शुगर सेल के अंदर चला जाता है, यूज हो जाता है। मगर एक्स्ट्रा फैट होने की वजह से क्या होता है? इंसुलिन जो है वो काम तो करना चाहती है, मगर जो सेल है वो सेल रिस्पॉन्सिव नहीं रहता, वो शुगर को यूटिलाइज, बाहर फेंक देता है, वापस यूटिलाइज नहीं होने देता। सो अगर शुगर यूटिलाइज नहीं होगा, सेल के अंदर नहीं जाएगा तो यूटिलाइज नहीं होगा, तो ब्लड में शुगर बढ़ेगा, धीरे धीरे बढ़ता है, और इंसुलिन बढ़ता है और शुगर बढ़ेगा। एक पॉइंट आता है कि जब इंसुलिन की बढ़ाने की कैपेसिटी बॉडी की खत्म हो जाती है और उस समय शुगर बढ़ जाता है। तो वो एक पॉइंट होता है जहां डायबिटीज का डायग्नोसिस होता है। तो वो डायबिटीज के डायग्नोसिस से 5 से 7 साल पहले ये प्रोसेस शुरू हो चुका होता है। टाइप 2 डायबिटीज की मैं बात करूंगा, टाइप 1 तो एक अलग ही चीज होती है जिसमें तो इंसुलिन होता ही नहीं है। तो टाइप 2 डायबिटीज में जिस दिन डायग्नोसिस होता है वो सारा प्रोसीजर, सारा प्रोसेस जो है, एबनॉर्मेलिटी 5 से 7 साल पहले शुरू हो गई होती है। सो इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस जब होती है तो उससे क्या होता है? हाई इंसुलिन लेवल्स, एक्टोपिक फैट डिपॉजिशन, फैट वहां डिपॉजिट होता है जहां उसे होना नहीं चाहिए। फैट को डिपॉजिट होना चाहिए फैट सेल में, मगर फैट और भी जगह जाके डिपॉजिट होता है, उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस होते हैं आपका डिस्ग्लाइसीमिया एंड लिपिड ऑल्टरेशंस, ग्लूकोज मेटाबॉलिज्म हेवायर हो जाता है, कोलेस्ट्रॉल या लिपिड्स मेटाबॉलिज्म वो भी गड़बड़ा जाता है। और एक्टोपिक फैट जो मैं कह रहा था, फैट जहां नहीं होना चाहिए अगर वहां पे डिपॉजिट होता है तो उसका क्या दिक्कत होती है? तो जहां पे फैट को नहीं डिपॉजिट, अगर फैट सेल में गया तो वो उसकी नॉर्मल जगह है रहने की, कहीं और जाके अगर रहने लगा तो वो खुश नहीं रहेगा फैट, वो गड़बड़ करना शुरू कर देगा, इन्फ्लेमेशन शुरू हो जाएगी फैट में, और फैट में इन्फ्लेमेशन होगी तो वो अपने इन्फ्लेम्ड टिश्यू जो होता है वो सारे बैड साइटोकाइंस हार्मोन्स वो रिलीज करना शुरू कर देती है, एंड दैट लिपिड ओवरफ्लोज इनटू ऑर्गन्स। लिवर में जाएगा, फैटी लिवर हो जाता है, हार्ट में जाएगा, हार्ट में भी एक स्टीएटोसिस हो जाता है, हार्ट का जो मसल में फैट बढ़ने लगता है, स्केलेटल मसल में भी फैट जमा हो जाता है, वो मसल के फंक्शन को अफेक्ट करता है, पैनक्रियाज में फैट हो जाता है जिसे फैटी पैनक्रियाज कहते हैं, अब वो भी पैनक्रियाज के फंक्शन को ऑल्टर करता है। सो एक्टोपिक फैट रिस्क कैसे बढ़ाता है? ऑर्गन स्पेसिफिक इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस, और हर जिस ऑर्गन में फैट ज्यादा बढ़ गया वहां पे इंसुलिन काम करना बंद कर देती है, इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस हैपेंस इन दैट पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गन, एंड कॉन्सिक्वेंस ऑफ impaired subcutaneous fat storage। जैसे देयर सम डिसीजेस जहां पे फैट होता नहीं है, स्किन में होता नहीं, वो जेनेटिक प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, लाइपोडिस्ट्रोफी एक एग्जांपल है जहां जेनेटिकली प्रॉब्लम होती है जिसमें कि फैट एक्यूमुलेट होता नहीं है स्किन में और एडिपोज टिश्यू में, वो और जगह जाके जमा हो जाता है। लिवर, जैसा मैंने कहा, फैटी लिवर हो जाता है, फैटी लिवर होने के बाद डायबिटीज का रिस्क बढ़ जाता है। पेरी पैनक्रियाटिक फैट, जो बीटा सेल जो इंसुलिन बनाते हैं वो उनके काम को गड़बड़ करता है। मायोसेलुलर लिपिड्स मसल के अंदर जो होते हैं, जैसा मैंने कहा, मसल में इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस आ जाती है। अब ये कैसे, इसका क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस है वो मैं बाद में आऊंगा। एडिपोज टिश्यू इन्फ्लेमेशन, जैसे एज आई सेड, एडिपोज टिश्यू गेट्स इन्फ्लेम्ड, so what it happens is, the first thing it causes is disruption of insulin signaling. Insulin signaling is the most important for every metabolic function, for glucose, lipids, every metabolic function that is important. Now inflammation increases, then it causes atherosclerosis, like deposition of fat in the arteries. So now पहले कहते थे कि extra fat की वजह से हार्ट की आर्टरीज सब में वो फैट जाके डिपॉजिट होता है, दैट वाज द अर्ली थियरी अबाउट एथेरोस्क्लेरोसिस, बट नाउ everybody knows and now the research says atherosclerosis is an inflammatory process. If there is inflammation, that increases the risk or that promotes atherosclerosis, not just fat intake. Even in the person who doesn't have fat intake, there is chronic inflammation, the person may develop atherosclerosis, and something like this must have happened or had happened during the COVID pandemic, because the COVID infection had caused extreme inflammation in the body, and then there were instances of atherosclerosis, there were instances of artery blockage, there were instances of cardiac problems, heart attacks, strokes in individuals who did not have any other risk factor, just that infection was one risk factor. So inflammation is the key, and they build up fat, and liver tissue is damaged, liver fibrosis, वो over a period of time वो cirrhosis में चला जाता है। एडिपोकाइन प्रोडक्शन, जो फैट सेल जो होता है वो नॉर्मली अच्छे हार्मोन भी बनाता है, जैसे एडिपोनेक्टिन है, वो अच्छा हार्मोन है, वो उसको भी बनाता है, मगर जो फैट टिश्यू जब इन्फ्लेम हो जाती है तो वो गंदे हार्मोन बनाना शुरू कर देती है, अच्छे हार्मोन बनाना बहुत कम हो जाता है। और ये जो इन्फ्लेमेटरी मार्कर्स परसिस्टेंटली होते हैं, ये सारे ऑर्गन को अफेक्ट करते हैं, लिवर, किडनी, हार्ट, ब्रेन, वाइटल ऑर्गन्स। सो इन्फ्लेमेशन इज द की। So we have talked about the fat story. Now let's come to the muscle story. Why muscle is important? We all know fat is bad, but what is the importance of muscle? It's the largest organ in the body which utilizes the glucose that you take. No other organ utilizes it, right? The insulin sensitivity is very important at muscle level for adequate glucose uptake. Whatever glucose you take, muscle takes it up for your activities, day-to-day activities, physical activity, mobility, everything. Muscle is involved. That takes it up. If the lipid gets accumulated there, it becomes toxic. Lipotoxicity interferes with the insulin signaling. And everybody would be knowing that the powerhouse of muscle is mitochondria. That's the powerhouse which generates power in muscle. So mitochondria, then there is more fat, the powerhouse gets affected. The powerhouse is not able to generate enough power, is not able to do as much as it can be. The number of mitochondria decrease because more fat is coming in. The powerhouse number decreases, powerhouse functioning gets deranged. So mitochondrial dysfunction causes impaired energy metabolism and metabolic flexibility. We have a lot of metabolic flexibility. So whatever, if you take excess, it is utilized. That flexibility is not there. That is disturbed. And the muscles also release some kind of cytokines, myokines. I mean, if there are a lot of fat is there in the muscle, then they start producing again the bad ones instead of the good ones. And this leads to gradually decrease in the muscle function. Muscle function decreases, then the glucose uptake also decreases further, and that exacerbates insulin resistance and contributes to the metabolic risk. So fat is one important thing, and it affects muscle also. Now, muscle is not simple there only for functioning. It is an endocrine organ. There are several hormones it releases. Now, interactions between adipose tissue and muscle. Now, what excess adipose tissue or fat leads to excess fat deposition in the muscle. That leads to impaired your lipid and glucose metabolism, right? That leads to powerhouse or mitochondrial dysfunction, impaired muscle function, right? So if the muscle function is impaired, that leads to metabolic impairment as well as the physical activity decreases. If your muscles have become weak, you will not be doing it, you'll be tired. You will not feel like doing more exercise. Physical activity capability will be reduced, right? And then what will happen? That again will lead to increased fat. So this is a kind of vicious cycle which starts and it goes on. And that is how the fat and the muscle both interact in this manner. Here I like to introduce the term sarcopenia. So sarco means flesh, penia means decrease. So this is a term, sarcopenia, which was generally described for age-related loss in the muscle mass and function. Generally 65 के ऊपर जो होता है मसल की क्वालिटी क्वांटिटी थोड़ी कम होती रहती है, एज रिलेटेड फिनोमिनन है, वो सब में होता है. But this can happen earlier also. That is why it's important. Process starts in younger age group. So once the muscles are growing, they grow up to a peak mass. Peak muscle mass is attained by the age of about 30 years. After that, every 10 years, there is about slight decrease in the muscle mass, maybe by 1 to 2% every decade till the age of 70. After 70, the rate of decrease in the muscle may go up to about 5% per decade. So that the rate accelerates because production happens, and that is peak till 30. Then gradual decrease starts. So there are several factors which can cause the decrease in the muscle. That is age. Anabolic resistance means whatever you are taking, muscle is not able to utilize it. Physical inactivity. Physical inactivity is the most important thing. If you don't activate your muscles, they will not grow by themselves. You have to activate them, only then they will work for you. So sarcopenia, simple way to find out is the muscle strength, whether you are having a problem of this or not. Simple muscle strength. There is a dynamometer. You clutch the dynamometer with all your strength. That gives you a particular value. You can find out. Otherwise, the more simple method of that is sit on a chair, keep your arms, and then sit on the chair and get up quickly, rapidly, and see in 1 minute how many times you are able to do that. That's a timed up and go test. That's a chair stand test. That's another one is quickly you stand, you walk for 4 meters and then come back. So within a minute, how much you are able to do. That will tell you indirectly what is the strength of your muscle. So these are the various methods. Muscle amount you can find out by several measures on the left side. In the middle, the muscle strength measurement, and the physical performance. So that is the you gait speed, timed get up and go test, or the chair test. So this is just the Asian working group which has given the various parameters to define whether you have sarcopenia or not. I won't go into the details. Now coming to the metabolic implications. What is the importance of muscle or decrease in muscle? So once the muscle is amount or quality is decreased, that leads to metabolic problems. As I mentioned, muscle is important. Insulin resistance, impaired glucose tolerance, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. Now, obesity and sarcopenia both can occur together. That is called sarcopenic obesity. If you have just obesity, if your muscle mass is good, you are slightly better off. If you are a normal weight and your muscle mass is not so good, still you may be better off. At risk, but better off. But if you have obesity, more fat and less muscle, that's the worst combination to have, which unfortunately happens quite frequently in obese individuals. So that can worsen problems of glucose intolerance, increase the risk of diabetes, etc. So ability to be physically active, that is the one very important thing. And if you have sarcopenia or less muscle mass, तो अगर muscle कमजोर है या muscle mass कम है तो फिजिकली एक्टिव नहीं रह पाएंगे आप. अगर फिजिकल एक्टिविटी नहीं कर पाएंगे तो फिर से आपका फैट बढ़ेगा और फिर जैसा मैंने पहले दिखाया था स्लाइड में, वो एक विशेष साइकिल शुरू हो जाती है. Now, this is just our data that prevalence of metabolic syndrome according to sarcopenia, right? So the sarcopenia group देखिए, non-sarcopenia. Now the non-sarcopenia से compare किया जाए तो sarcopenia में abdominal obesity, high BP, high blood sugar, high triglyceride और metabolic syndrome, ये सारे वैल्यू ज्यादा हैं. तो कहने का मतलब इसका ये है कि अगर आपको सार्कोपीनिया है या मसल आपके कमजोर हैं तो आप में ये सारे जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, डिसऑर्डर होने का रिस्क काफी बढ़ जाता है. एंड ये जैसे जैसे आपका ग्लूकोज एबनॉर्मेलिटी बढ़ती जाती है, जैसे हम ग्लूकोज की एबनॉर्मेलिटी को डिसाइड करते हैं कि नॉर्मल ग्लूकोज टॉलरेंस, आपकी बॉडी ग्लूकोज को अच्छे से टॉलरेट कर रही है, यूटिलाइज कर रही है. फिर होता है इम्पेयर्ड ग्लूकोज टॉलरेंस. जब उसका ये मतलब होता है कि जब खाली पेट होते हैं तब तो वैल्यूज ठीक हैं, मगर आप जब खाने के बाद एकदम से शूटअप कर जाती है. इसका मतलब खाने के बाद जो शुगर लेवल ग्लूकोज में आपकी स्पाइक बढ़ता है, बॉडी उसको कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रही है, तो टॉलरेट नहीं कर पा रही है ग्लूकोज. दैट इज इम्पेयर्ड ग्लूकोज टॉलरेंस. और जब तीसरी स्टेज होती है, जब खाली पेट भी आपका शुगर हाई होता है, बॉडी कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रही है, वो डायबिटीज की स्टेज है. तो जैसे जैसे ग्लूकोज टॉलरेंस, नॉर्मल ग्लूकोज, प्री डायबिटीज जो इम्पेयर्ड ग्लूकोज टॉलरेंस कहते हैं, या डायबिटीज, जिस तरह से धीरे धीरे बढ़ती जाती है, आप देखेंगे सार्कोपीनिया या कम मसल से इसका रिलेशन है. जैसे जैसे ये बढ़ता जाता है, जितना जैसे जैसे होता है, उसमें मसल की क्वालिटी या क्वांटिटी कम होती जाती है. सो मसल और मेटाबॉलिक प्रॉब्लम का बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग कनेक्शन है, जो अब लोगों को समझ में आ रहा है और इसके ऊपर काम हो रहा है और उसको भी लोग हाईलाइट कर रहे हैं. मैकेनिज्म्स, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस, ये एक समरी है कि सार्कोपीनिया और ओबेसिटी दोनों एक अलग स्पेक्ट्रम है, दोनों एक तरफ होते हैं, दोनों एक दूसरे के ऑपोजिट हैं, मगर दोनों एक दूसरे के साथ मिल करके ये सारी प्रॉब्लम्स कॉज कर सकते हैं. सो ये मसल स्टोरी के बारे में हमने बात की. अब आते हैं कि फैट एक्स्ट्रा है, मसल कम है, दोनों प्रॉब्लम है, तो ये सबको टैकल कैसे किया जाए. मैनेजमेंट, लाइफस्टाइल मॉडिफिकेशन, कॉर्नरस्टोन, मेन पिलर, उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं है. फार्माकोलॉजिकल थेरेपीज, ड्रग्स, हाई फैट के लिए ड्रग्स हैं, कम मसल के लिए अभी तक मार्केट में कोई ड्रग नहीं है सक्सेसफुल, जो वर्ल्ड ओवर कोई अभी मसल को बढ़ाने के लिए कोई ड्रग नहीं है, जो भी है वो बहुत एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टेज में। तो हाई फैट को कम करने के लिए ड्रग्स अवेलेबल हैं। सर्जिकल ट्रीटमेंट वो भी सिर्फ हाई फैट के लिए है, मसल बढ़ाने के लिए नहीं है। सो न्यूट्रिशन मैनेजमेंट, डाइटरी मैनेजमेंट, जो अक्सर आई एम श्योर कई लोगों ने फॉलो किया होगा या करने की कोशिश की होगी। सो मेन उसका जो मेन क्रक्स है कैलोरी डेफिसिट। कैलोरी कम करिए, जितना आप खा रहे हैं उसमें से कैलोरी कम होनी चाहिए, अराउंड 500 to 600 कैलोरीज कम पर डे। बैलेंस्ड मैक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स, हमारे में मैक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स मेजर होते हैं कार्बोहाइड्रेट, फैट, प्रोटीन। तो जो उनकी एक रेशियो होता है वो रेशियो बैलेंस होना चाहिए। कई सारी डाइट्स आप सुनते होंगे कि फैट ज़्यादा खा लो तो जल्दी वेट होता है, या प्रोटीन खाली खाइए तो वेट जल्दी लॉस होता है। वो सब चीज़ें जो होती हैं वो सस्टेन नहीं हो पाती लंबे समय तक। बहुत सारी डाइट्स हैं, मैं नाम नहीं लूंगा अभी, मगर बहुत सारे तरह की डाइट्स हैं। देखा जाए तो 8-10 तरीके की डाइट्स लोग प्रोपेगेट करते हैं। कोई ये सेलिब्रिटी करता है, कोई वो सेलिब्रिटी करता है, मगर द मेन फिजियोलॉजिकली जो करेक्ट डाइट है उसमें रेशियो सेम होना चाहिए। 55% तक कार्बोहाइड्रेट, 20% से 25% आपका प्रोटीन, और आपने बाकी 15-20% से 25% अगर आप चाहें तो उसमें फैट होना चाहिए। फैट को आप कम रखें, अगर 20% रखें, प्रोटीन को अगर 25 रख लें तो भी ठीक है। तो वो एक बैलेंस्ड आपका मैक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट वाली डाइट होनी चाहिए विद रिड्यूस्ड कैलोरी। सो दिस इज द आइडियल डाइट विच वन शुड फॉलो। हाई न्यूट्रिएंट डेंसिटी जिसे कहते हैं, न्यूट्रिएंट जो होते हैं उसमें क्या है कि प्रायोरिटाइज होल मिनिमली प्रोसेस्ड फूड्स। प्रोसेस्ड फूड जो भी ऑफ द शेल्फ इमीडिएटली खाने के लिए, उसको अवॉइड करें, एज सिंपल एज दैट। अब आजकल तो लेबल, फ्रंट ऑफ द लेबल पैकेज में FOPL जो है, फ्रंट ऑफ पैकेज लेबलिंग में भी गवर्नमेंट ने उसमें कुछ प्रयास किया है कि लिखा होना चाहिए कि क्या है इसमें, कितनी कैलोरी है, कितना फैट है, कितना ये है। मगर वो कहीं भी आप कई चीज़ों में देखो वो इतना छोटा होता है कि आपको नज़र नहीं आएगा जब तक आप लेंस से ना देखें। सो वो प्रोमिनेंट नहीं है, वो है छोटा सा कहीं ना कहीं लगा हुआ है। सो प्रोसेस्ड फूड को आप हटा दीजिए, मिनिमाइज कर दीजिए, होल दिस थिंग और फ्रेशली कुक्ड वो जितना आप करेंगे तो वो बेहतर है। रिफाइंड शुगर्स को अवॉइड करें। रिफाइंड शुगर, रिफाइंड ग्रेन, जो ट्रेडिशनल हमारी इंडियन डाइट पहले की थी। पोर्शन कंट्रोल, पोर्शन कंट्रोल एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है कि आपका मन कर रहा है पिज्जा खाने का, ठीक है, यू हैव योर डिजायर। नाउ जनरली जो है, अब उस तरह देखा जाए कि वंस यू हैव वन स्लाइस, योर डिजायर टू हैव दैट, डिजायर टू हैव पिज्जा, और योर टेस्ट buds and everything is satiated at that time. That is, you got the taste, your desire is fulfilled. So the rest of it generally one tends to eat because it's there, right? जो आपको मन करता है कि यार आज ये मन खाने का कर रहा है, तो वो सिर्फ एक स्लाइस में आपका वो सेटिस्फाई हो जाता है। उसके ऊपर जो खाया जाता है वो सिर्फ वो एडिशनल है। सो पोर्शन कंट्रोल कर लीजिए, आप भी खुश, आपकी बॉडी भी खुश। सो दैट इज अ की विच मे बी इंपॉर्टेंट। लॉन्ग टर्म सस्टेनेबिलिटी, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। कोई भी डाइटरी अप्रोच होनी चाहिए जो लंबे समय तक काम करे, वो ज्यादा जरूरी है। ये नहीं कि आपने किसी ने आपको बड़ी स्ट्रिक्ट डाइट बोल दी जो आप महीने से ज्यादा तो कर ही नहीं सकते, आप महीने बाद छोड़ दोगे तो जो आपने लूज किया है वेट वो वापस आ जाएगा। सो सस्टेनेबिलिटी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। और जितने भी अटेम्प्ट्स एट वेट लॉस या होते हैं, एंड वो क्यों फेल होते हैं, इस रीजन की वजह से। सस्टेनेबल अप्रोच, लॉन्ग टर्म गोल, शॉर्ट टर्म गोल होने चाहिए मगर लॉन्ग टर्म गोल वो बहुत जरूरी है। टारगेट्स अबाउट 8 to 10% वेट लॉस इन 6 months। अगर 100 kgs हैं आप, तो 6 महीने में 10 किलो लूज करने का प्रयास करें। बजाय कि 2 महीने में 10 किलो लूज करने का. वो सस्टेनेबल नहीं होगा. फिर उसके बाद रिबाउंड वेट गेन विच मे बी मच मोर. सो दैट इज द गोल शुड बी रीजनेबल. The most weight loss, whatever you attempt, occurs initial 3 months. So that the most rapid happens in the first 3 months. Then it gets into a plateau phase because body responds quickly. Whatever diet, exercise, whatever you're doing, it responds quickly for the first 3 months. That may determine how much long you'll be able to sustain. Some studies have shown that, but that is the time. Secondary goal is to sustain this momentum. Rather than you lose now in 3 months and then you go beyond in the next 3 months again. So momentum has to be sustained. That's very important. Types of diet, you must have come across low calorie diets where it's about 1000 to 1500 calories, or very low calorie diet which some people say 800 calories or 600 calories per day. Very low calorie diets may be effective, but they are not sustainable. Low calorie diets, again, they are sustainable because they can give you the whole requirement of your micro and macronutrients. So this is a typical by our NIN, my plate of the day. So this should be, ideally should be your ideal plate. Well, it is not I'm sure it cannot be the ideal for everybody, but it should be the ideal. You can try to keep as ideal as possible. And this is the food pyramid. So the bottommost things, much more, and the topmost things, restricted or limited. Don't stop anything. It's only that one has to limit some things, one has to take other things in abundance. So once if somebody says you completely stop aloo or you completely stop rice, that's not sustainable. Stopping any nutrient, any vegetable, any fruit or anything completely, somebody will say, oh, stop non-vegetarian, absolutely, completely, because that's making you fat. No. Stopping completely is not a good idea at all, and that type of a diet is never going to be successful over a long term. Restriction is very important. Take this, but take less. Take this more. So stopping should never be the idea. Wise choices. Out here it shows whatever you can substitute. There are several things you can substitute the bad things for the good ones, be it the beverages, be it your snacks, be it your main course. All of this you can substitute. Now, altering the energy balance, energy intake, which determines the weight loss with diet, not the mixture of macronutrients. Total energy, how much you are taking, that is most important. This is just to emphasize again. So as I said, rapid weight loss initially is from water depletion. Later on, the weight loss is with a loss of body fat. Now what happens? Once you start losing weight, the body initially is active, then the body starts feeling, nutrition come hai, my weight is coming down. So metabolic rate goes down because body has a very perfect self-preservation system. So when the body senses that less nutrition is coming, I should not work more. Right? That is why many people, once they go on a diet, they feel lethargic, lack of energy initially or after some time. Initially they may feel okay, but after a few days or weeks, they start feeling low. This is the reason, because body senses that the nutrients coming now are less. So let me go into a preservation mode. Let me slow down. Right? The basal metabolic rate goes down. Conserve energy, because nutrition, body goes into a starvation, preservation mode. Now that is the point when the plateau happens. That is the point when weight loss plateaus with the lifestyle measures. Now that is, one has to find out strategies or ways to overcome that plateau. Here is the concept of time restricted feeding or fasting or intermittent fasting. So as our earlier on the Vedas and all say that eat after sunrise and eat between sunrise and sunset. Nothing before sunrise, nothing after sunset. That's a traditional teaching. That may be correct. because uh, the calorie intake is reduced during, if you reduce the time, feeding time, the calorie intake is reduced. You cannot keep on, I mean, it's very difficult to have 2000 or 2500 calories just within a restricted window of 8 to 10 hours. Improves your insulin sensitivity. And once the body goes into a starvation for about 12 hours or 14 hours, then from glucose, the body switches to fat, usage of fat as a fuel. So if the body uses fat as a fuel, it's better. It utilizes more fat rather than just a glucose. Your appetite regulation is better. You don't unnecessarily eat. You eat only when it is required. So appetite regulation also improves with that. And it aligns with your circadian rhythm. Right? Before sunrise, you're sleeping. After sunset, you don't eat. You're less active after sunset. Generally talking, not everybody. It's the opposite for us. Right? So that is the way that, I mean, the circadian rhythm, it resembles more closely. And also the recent evidence indicates that this also helps in cell repair or apoptosis. It improves the process of apoptosis, where body repairs the damaged cells or removes the damaged cells. Right? So this is an important aspect, time restricted. And this will overcome some of the problems of plateauing. So this is what we did, a small trial on intermittent fasting. So this was a short study. Over a period of time, we did 3: alternate day, decreased calories, restrict to 500, or 2 days in a week, restrict to 500, 2 non-consecutive days. And third group was daily, you restrict 500. And we thought, let us see. Now you see here, so control group was daily restriction. The orange bar is 2 days in a week restriction of calories, and the third one, blue was the gray one was alternate day, right? So what you see here, that in both alternate day and 5:2, the decrease was there in body weight, in your waist circumference, in percentage body fat. And this was successful. This was only 3 months trial. Studies, recent meta-analysis say that over a long period of time, both intermittent fasting and daily calorie restriction perform equally well. Now, this is a way to cheat your body. 2 days you restrict calories, the body doesn't get the message that the nutrition is less. The BMR doesn't go down. So that's the whole idea. Not let the BMR decrease, not let the body decrease your metabolic rate. You decrease nutrition so that the consumption is more or expenditure is more, intake is less, without body coming to terms with it. The problem with fat diets, as I said, weight loss is often the water loss, and supplements, a lot of people prescribe, they may be dangerous. So behavior change, very important. Sustainability is very important. Affordability and acceptability. Something which should be sustainable, affordable to everybody, and it should be acceptable and according to the problems existing in the patient. Of course, a diabetic cannot be asked to do intermittent fasting, because there, the person who's taking insulin or medications will go into hypoglycemia and have problems. So not every diet is for everybody. One has to take care of the existing problems. So a heart patient cannot do that, should not be given that, because it may cause problems. Now, physical activity, aerobic activity, about 150 minutes in a week. Ideally, it should be 1 hour every day, but minimum 150 minutes. Resistance is very important. Why? I'll come to that later on. To decrease your sedentary behavior, that's most important. You incorporate NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT, in your activity, in your daily life. So be active in whatever you're doing, right? Try to, even if you're sitting on the computer for an hour or so, after every hour take a break, or after 1.5 hours take a break of 15-20 minutes. Nothing, just walk around. If you have to get a coffee, walk down. Instead of getting the coffee there by somebody, you just walk down to the place and get a coffee. So that will help you to be active. Sedentary behavior, that you should decrease. So coming to pharmacotherapy, this is the timeline. The drugs, over a period of time from 1959, now we have 23, the blockbuster drugs. The Mounjaro, tirzepatide, semaglutide or Wegovy, Ozempic. These are the blockbuster drugs. Many drugs came. The mainly anti-obesity drugs are, one, acting on the brain to make you eat less. The second ones, to act on your intestine to make the less nutrients get absorbed. Right? And now these drugs are the ones, the recent ones, they act on the brain as well, they act on the gut as well. So they have a dual action, and that is why they have become blockbuster drugs. Now this is just to show the efficacy of weight loss. Earlier drugs used to have some about 3%, 4% weight loss, but now these drugs, what you have, they are boasting up to 25% of weight loss over a period of time, over 1 year. So which is remarkable. This is just the pharmacological options, and this I'll skip. Now some people may say that I am fat, but I am normal, I am all right. So that is where the metabolically healthy obese or the obesity paradox comes. Now what is paradox? Is it a fact or a myth? Now this is basically a phenomenon where it is seen that slightly overweight or obese individual may have a better chance in surviving in certain situations. Why? Suppose a patient who has heart failure, who has chronic bronchitis, chronic kidney disease, or for that matter cancer. These all diseases which I mentioned here are highly catabolic states. Your body is in a state of catabolism, right? It's the expenditure, energy it's being destroyed. So in that situation, somebody who has a little more BMI maybe possibly have a better metabolic reserve than somebody who is already underweight. So that underweight or as a normal weight person will go into underweight quickly with these diseases because of the high catabolic rate. Whereas somebody who has extra will have a better outcome. So paradox is with respect to these chronic problems. So, but it depends. Fat mass is more or muscle mass is more. Obviously, if muscle mass is more, it will have a better metabolic benefit. If fat mass is there more, it will not have that much of a benefit. So weight loss, now here one important thing I would like to just mention is weight loss happens. You lose fat, you lose muscle as well, both. Now up to 25% of the weight that you lose may be muscle. So that becomes a problem. The benefit that you get from fat loss may be acted by the loss in the lean muscle. So if you can get 10% benefit with fat loss, the benefit goes down to 7%. Why? Because you have lost a good tissue, muscle as well. Right? So that is something very important that needs to be seen, and this happens with all these, whatever you do, diet, lifestyle, drugs, surgery, everything. Lean mass is lost. So why? To prevent that, what is more important? Why? While you are losing weight, increase your protein. That's very important, because then you preserve your lean mass or muscle mass and lose more fat. That's important. Second, whatever exercise you're doing, incorporate muscle strengthening exercise or resistance exercise. That is very important. So you activate your muscle, so your muscle will be preserved. Fat only will be lost. So high protein, generally it is said that 1 gram per kg of your body weight is required. But if you are losing weight, trying to lose weight, increase the protein intake to about 1.5 grams per kg body weight. That will help you to lose weight faster as well as preserve your lean mass. Some amino acids are important. They play a role, like leucine plays a role. More than 2 grams per kg may be required in individuals who already have sarcopenia, who are already having muscle deficit. So there you may increase a little bit. But again, one has to take care of kidney problems. More protein you take it puts more load on the kidney. So which protein, animal versus plant? Plant protein, it has low anabolism, requires complementary meals. So any day animal protein is much better, more bioavailable, it's a more better quality. But the choice depends on whatever is your dietary preference. Now, protein distribution. When should you take protein? In the morning, in the night, before exercise, after exercise? What? Ideally, it should be distributed throughout the day. If you need 90 grams, or if you need say 60 grams of protein for a 60 kg, so it should be 20 in the breakfast, 20 in the lunch, and 20 in the dinner. If you take 40 grams in the dinner, take 10 grams in the lunch and 10 grams in the breakfast, that does not give that much stimulus to the muscle or improve the muscle quantity and quality as equal distribution. So try to have an equal distribution. That gives a better anabolic response. Exercise, again I said aerobic, resistance or combined. So resistance exercise, again I am emphasizing. Aerobic everybody knows. Cycling, jogging, whatever you can do, you do. Whatever you can do. Resistance, why I am emphasizing here, this is to improve your muscle. Whatever, resistance you can do using your own body weight. Your body as the weight, push-ups, they are an example of a muscle strengthening exercise. Elastic bands, which are shown here, they are simple, they are available 200, 300 rupees with different strengths. You can just do that, different set of exercises. You activate your upper limb, lower limb, all kinds of muscles with that. They are simple, effective ways. We had done a trial and it shows remarkable effects. I haven't put the data here. Free weights, you take up a dumbbell, start with the low weight, 2 kgs, 3 kgs. The idea is not to, if you want to make muscles, well and good. The idea is to activate your sleeping muscles. Activate them. Once they get activated, they keep on metabolizing. So that's the whole idea. And resistance machines, if you have access to a hi-fi gym, you do that. So anything about any way you can do resistance exercise, that is important. So that was my last slide. So in summary, the obesity has become a major health problem, we all know, and it's increasing in every age group, everywhere. And in mirror to that is the increasing diabetes. Now India has become the diabetes capital of the world, and we are having the problems earlier at a younger age group. Now, fat plays an important role. We all know excess fat is bad. But skeletal muscle, it plays a very important role in the regulation of energy and protein metabolism, also in the metabolic processes. So, one should now focus, in addition to decreasing your fat, one should focus on muscle as well, because these two are very closely interrelated. Poor muscle leads to problems. Lifestyle management remains the corner. Diet and exercise, we cannot do away with that. If somebody thinks that I'll get the Ozempic injections and I'll be fine, no. Without lifestyle, without diet and exercise, nothing is going to work to that efficiency as it would with lifestyle. Newer drugs, they are blockbuster drugs, provided they reach to everybody. Now, weight loss, again, as I mentioned, leads to lean mass loss. Now, that is something undesirable. So, we should try to, whatever strategy you follow, try to improve your lean mass by increasing protein intake, maybe by increasing resistance exercise. So, I think with that, I'll end my talk. Thank you so much. Be happy to take questions, if any.
Thank you, Dr. Naval K. Vikram, for that fascinating and deeply insightful session. Your practical perspectives on the causes, management, and psychological implications of obesity and metabolic disorders, a crosstalk between fat and muscle, have been truly eye-opening for all of us. We now open the floor for our question and answer segment. This is a wonderful opportunity to interact directly with our expert. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and our volunteers will bring mic to you. To moderate this session, I invite Dr. Yasmin, Chief Medical Officer at IIT Delhi Hospital, to kindly take the stage. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Thanks, sir, for such an invigorating, inspiring talk. And I now invite everyone to ask questions. And please get your doubt clear.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, sir. Good afternoon. I have a couple of related questions with insulin sensitivity. So the metformin drug, which is given for improving our insulin sensitivity, does our human body get used to it, like with opioids or something like that? With drugs like that? That is my first question. And my second question is that does this insulin sensitivity also play a role in PCOD and PCOD related complications?
Okay. Answering your second question first, definitely insulin resistance or lack of insulin sensitivity plays an extremely important role in PCOD related problem. That is in fact the underlying cause. That is number one. Number two, metformin. So far, the data whatever we have, it shows that metformin keeps on working. It does not fail, right? Because for decades, if one keeps on taking metformin, the insulin sensitivity, whatever it has to act, it keeps on acting. Now, over the period of time, patients with diabetes will require more and more drugs. That is because the drugs which stimulate insulin secretion from the body, there's a limit. So the beta cells are 50% by the time you get diagnosed. They keep on dying, and there comes a time when their population is 10 to 20% left of what it was originally when a person is born with. So that is the time insulin would be required. So metformin doesn't generally fail in the sense it keeps on working. Body doesn't get used to it.
Okay, so as in if we take metformin, it adds an extra effect to what our insulin is already doing. But if we stop the drug, it's not that our body will cause more problems, is what I was asking.
See, metformin does not improve insulin secretion. It helps whatever your insulin is producing, whatever body is producing the insulin, it helps it to act more.
Oh.
That's all.
Yeah.
So once you stop the drug, that effect will go off. Now, obviously, the problem will happen.
Okay. Yeah. And about the second question, how exactly how are they related, PCOS and insulin sensitivity?
See, insulin resistance, again, as I said, high amount of fat is there. So high amount of fat is there, and then that leads to insulin resistance. And if excess fat and insulin resistance is there, generally the hormone, as I said, hormonal profile, secretion of hormones, the adipose tissue can secrete both male sex hormones and female sex hormones. So the testosterone, the more the hormones which are secreted, they are going to the male hormone pathway as well as female hormone pathway. So in obese women, the more of this pathway that the hormones which are secreted are going towards the male hormone pathway. So the testosterone levels, they become high, and that leads to increased facial hair and all those kind of problems. So the androgen excess, what is called there, it happens. So that is why this is there. And then once you add metformin, the insulin sensitivity increases, and the whole process in the fat tissue of this switching of the hormone towards one, that improves. And once that improves, the PCOD symptoms also improve. And
Thank
that
you so
also
much.
affects ovulation and cycles and everything.
Great. Thank you so much for this.
Hello, sir. First of all, thank you for the insightful session. My question is as you told, we have to introduce the change in our daily lifestyle, including diet and as well as the exercise wala part. So my question was regarding the exercise part. I want you to answer in two phases. Means for two age groups, like for age group of mine, between 20 and 30, and for the elder people, like for our parents. So how we should incorporate exercise into our lifestyles so that like it's a progression. Like for example, like we cannot start from the day one with the high magnitude of exercises. So how we should like so that things are maintained in a good fashion and we are able to like progress, because goals are different for both of these age groups, as well as uh, the goals would be increased upon time. Like at starting from this position, I would like to have a healthy body. Later on it could be having of greater mass of muscles. So like this was my question.
Okay. So exercise, like in the lifestyle, exercise has a very important role, but diet I would say still has a bigger role, because diet you can modify. Exercising, you can exercise to a limit. You can't keep on exercising the whole day, right? After a limit, your body gets fatigued, and now that endurance improves over a period of time. Obviously, the from day one you cannot go for a running for 1 hour. You start gradually, start with 20 minutes. See, the duration and the intensity, aerobic as well as resistance, has to be gradually increased over a period of weeks, not days, over a period of weeks. For you can start gradually, and over a period of weeks or months you will be able to reach at your maximum. And depending upon what is your target, if your target is just to maintain yourself, then that's a different target. If you want to participate in inter IIT athletics, that's a different. If you want to go in Olympic, then that's a different altogether. So your intensity duration varies according to what is your target. If you just want to maintain yourself, that's a different target. All right. And as you're growing till age of 30 or so, your muscle mass will keep on increasing. After that, you have to try to maintain that. It keeps on going down over a period of time. Once we come to the older individuals like us, there obviously your capability of exercise will go down. Whatever you're doing, not everybody can run marathons like Dr. Saga Mahesh. I mean, he keeps on running marathons. I mean, I can't do that. So not everybody can do that, right? So it's a different level at that time. So your capability, now exercise should be done for optimal benefit to the 70% of your maximum capability, right? If your capability is X, your this thing should be up of 70% of X. Only you should go up to that for maintenance. All right, that is the first thing. Second, with increasing the age, to remain active is the most important thing. The longer you are active, the later on you go, the time when you get bedridden, everybody gets, that is going to be very long. If you are more active, you'll maybe 90s also you'll keep be active. Otherwise you may get bedridden by in late 60s or 70s as well. So it's the level of activity is very important. In that perspective, do whatever you can. If you can just walk, brisk walk, fine. For your parents, I would say brisk walk is okay. Do brisk walk, do light resistance, lightweight, or that is feasible, depending upon the other problems, if there are any. So exercise, again, the prescription of exercise should be individualized, not one size fits all. It has to be individualized depending upon the age, depending upon your desire or what you want to do, depending upon what level you want to do to maintain or to be in a competitive manner. So that is very important. I hope that answers your question.
Hello, sir. So my question is about alternative weight management plans like Panchkarma and all in Ayurvedic. So they claim that they can reduce 5 to 6 kgs over like 10 days of Panchkarma treatment. So my question is, do these methods actually reduce your metabolic rate over time, or they actually help in reducing the inflammation in the body and weight management? So should we go for it, or like go for exercise instead?
Okay, you rightly said there are many alternative ways who claim to do a quick fix in weight loss management. I won't go into the specifics, what they do and how they do, and See, any method that you use, if you don't eat, if you eat just once in a day for about 2 weeks, that will also lead to weight loss. All right. But that is not sustainable. You can't do that the whole your life. If you want quickly, well, if somebody is, let's say, a movie star has a starts a movie shoot for about after 15 days, well, this may be beneficial there. You lose 10 kgs immediately, you become lean and muscular, and then for that shoot, or somebody, either male or female, anybody has a marriage coming up in a month, wants to shed few kilos, that may be okay. But again, these, that may be benefit. So any short term weight loss does not mean that it will be sustainable. Any weight loss short term is there, it, because short, the body physiology of inflammation, metabolic, other problems don't change in a short period of time. Weight may come down. As I said, the weight initially is, I mean, over a 10 days period, if you're losing, it's mainly water, because water is lost at that time. Fat doesn't get lost within 10 days. It cannot happen. It's physiologically, it cannot happen. You don't lose fat over 10 days. It's mainly the water which comes down. In patients with hypothyroidism, I think somebody who's there would know, when you start treatment, the weight comes down. That is why people say that thyroid की वजह से weight बढ़ गया है. No, thyroid is not a disease which leads to obesity. Thyroid leads to more fluid deposition in the body. And once you start thyroid medications, the fluid goes down. The fluid is removed, and that is what is the weight loss. So quick weight loss by any these methods initially is water, not fat. So quick fix, maybe depending upon your requirement, but that doesn't change much of a physiology, and there is a significant rebound which is seen after that. Quick fix, quick loss leads to quick regain.
So, sir, the way they say that it will reduce the inflammation in the body and then the body will be purified. So that is my question, that does it actually lead to the purification of body or it is just a fad?
Well, see, I can only vouch if there is a scientific data which shows all the inflammatory markers come down within a short period of time significantly, and they remain low significantly. They don't rise after a few days. If that some data is there, then I will accept it. In the absence of that, I mean, difficult to accept it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor, for coming to IIT and giving a very insightful talk. My question is, you mentioned that rural people have also seen an increase in the obesity in the last couple of years, and you mentioned inflammation to be one of the causes of, increase in the obesity and different atherosclerosis and other forms. So then, is there like an increase in the immunogen in general so that the obesity is increasing, or what is actually the reason that, like, rural people, as you mentioned, they are hardworking people with high muscle mass, etc. And what are your insights on how to address this problem, how to solve this problem, as in, like, what kind of policies can the government take so that we can bring down the obesity levels overall?
Okay. So the rural population, the traditionally farming rural population that was there, is decreasing nowadays, right? Because of urbanization or expansion, a lot of things are coming up. The farmland is shrinking. It is being replaced by development projects. So that is number one. Number two, the farmers who can afford, or many of the times, they themselves or their generation, next generation, generally initially they used to, all their children used to keep on working, the whole family used to keep on working. But now what is happening is that they are hiring. They are not themselves working. They are hiring people. As you now would see that in most of the farms all over India, I would say majority, the people who work in the farms, in the harvest and all that, they are different people. And that is why you often get that because of some festival, these people go away, so there is nobody to harvest, because they themselves are not doing it. They are become a sedentary now. Their lifestyle has become sedentary, and that is why the rates of obesity are increasing there. That is number one. Number two, that there is shift of the diet also. More and more these urban kind of food, quick fix and urban food styles, they are percolating into the rural population. Now, an example I would give is our rural health project that is in Ballabgarh. When we were students, Mahesh should remember, we used to go there, and we did a survey. Prevalence of obesity and diabetes were very less at that time. But some years back, another survey was done. A lot of people are now obese. A lot of people have diabetes, and the same villages under the rural project. So what has happened? The diet has changed. The lifestyle has changed. Sedentariness has increased. So this kind of a changes are happening in rural also. That is number one. That's why rural obesity also is increasing. The second one is inflammation. Yes, it plays a very important inflammation, especially for people in Delhi, because we have to face environmental pollution for the long amount of time, and it's very well clear by ample number of studies that increases inflammation in the body. Obesity, it is very well proven, increases inflammation in the body. So inflammation, be it because of environment, whatever it's there, be it because of obesity, or be it whatever may be the reason. Say inflammatory diseases somebody has, autoimmune or any chronic inflammatory disease. So inflammation in any way is there, and that leads to problems, that leads to organ dysfunction, that leads to increased atherosclerosis. So that is how inflammation plays a very important role.
Just like what can we do to reduce this in a mass scale, like we have polio vaccines? Can we do anything to address this problem?
See, inflammation, we have to reduce the source. Environmental pollution we can't get rid of in Delhi, right? We are so exposed to that. So difficult to get rid. Try to remove decrease the things which are causing inflammation. In case of obesity, decrease your body weight, decrease fat, and whatever. If the disease is there, then you try to control that by various drugs. So you have to try to remove the inciting agent. That's all. I mean, that's the only thing we can do.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, sir. Sir, continuing on the inflammation part, is obesity related to increase in allergies as well, like nasal allergies and bronchitis or asthmatic conditions due to inflammation increase or something like that?
Not really, because see, allergies are a totally different phenomenon. Allergy is a totally different phenomenon because your body may have cells which might react to some antigen. Obesity per se does not lead to increase in allergies or asthma. Yes, obesity can cause respiratory problems. That it can cause, because if the whole weight is there on your chest, there's a lot of weight on your chest, that will not let the lungs expand. So there may be a problem. So individual who's lean and fit will tolerate much more bronchoconstriction or problem as compared to an obese, because the other person will be able to expand his or her lungs to a greater extent, whereas an obese person with so much weight on the chest will not be able to expand the lungs. So we'll have a problem. So if bronchial asthma is not determined by obesity, but yes, in obesity the bronchial asthma exacerbation may be there, and it can be more problematic because lungs are not able to expand to that extent.
So, is there any upper limit to the amount of muscle that a medically fit body should have? Because in gym we see a lot of people having a lot of hypertrophy. So, is that safe medically?
See, there is no upper limit of muscle, right? It depends if you just want to tone your muscles or you want to become Arnold. I mean, if you want to go in Mr. Olympia, or if you want to participate there, then it's a different story. But there is no upper limit, but it is something that, what again I said, what is your target? You want to keep your muscles fit and toned, or muscle strength improved, that's a different story. If you want to bulk up, then it's a different story. And of course, if you are trying to bulk up, again, like in gym, wherever you go, I mean, a lot of they may suggest this, have this protein, that protein, this creatine, and whatnot. Don't take anything unless you first talk to your doctor. What is good? Too much of overloading of protein is, if you take excess protein thinking I'll build up my muscles, it's all going to have a strain on your kidney, because protein is excreted by kidney. The more protein you take, the more stress it gives you on kidney, and in a shorter duration only your kidney can just conk off. So that is something very important. So your target, what is your target? Your but to reach the target, whatever you do has to be accordingly.
And so the numbers you quoted for the protein sources, the amount of protein a person should have in sarcopenia, like 1.5 and 1 gram per body weight. So are those numbers fit for a person to consume for a long period of time without
Yes.
having load on kidneys?
Yes. So if you, for a normal healthy individual who just want to maintain the muscle, if you want to maintain, you take 0.8 to 1 gram per kg body weight. If you are 60 kgs, 60 grams should be to maintain your muscles. Maintain. If you take 30 grams, your muscles will gradually break down or gradually decrease. I mean, the protein is required. तो प्रोटीन कहाँ से आएगा? प्रोटीन मसल से ही आता है. मसल इज द मेन सोर्स ऑफ प्रोटीन. So protein breakdown will happen in your body and utilized. So you don't want that to happen. You have 60 grams in a day. If your already muscles are weak, you want to improve them, you take 1.5 grams per kg body weight. Or if you are an endurance athlete, or if you want to do some endurance exercise, their protein requirement will be increased. If you want to have to participate any level, there your protein has to be slightly more. And again, with protein has to come, hydration has to be there. Hydration comes along with protein. Taking only protein, less hydration is dangerous.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, my question is कि इन यंगर एज डायबिटीज टाइप 2 को सर रिवर्स किया जा सकता है विदाउट मेडिसिन एंड विद लाइफस्टाइल मॉडिफिकेशन?
आंसर टू योर दिस थिंग इज एज नहीं, यंगर अर्ली टाइप 2 डायबिटीज को रिवर्स किया जा सकता है
इन इनिशियल स्टेजेस.
इनिशियल स्टेजेस, यस. रिवर्सल ऑफ डायबिटीज पे भी काफी स्टडीज हैं. रिवर्सल ऑफ डायबिटीज हो सकता है so that in intensive lifestyle modification, intensive, normal lifestyle नहीं, intensive lifestyle, intensive diet and intensive exercise दोनों में अगर मिला के फॉलो किया जाए तो कुछ हद तक अर्ली स्टेज में, जैसे एबनॉर्मेलिटी डायबिटीज की तरफ गई है, तब उसको रिवर्स करके वापस लाया जा सकता है. बट वो इंटेंसिव को मेंटेन रखना पड़ेगा आपको ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ ईयर्स.
ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ ईयर्स या सर लाइफ टाइम?
लाइफ टाइम, ऑफ कोर्स, लाइफ टाइम.
एंड सर, जो डायबिटीज टाइप 2 के बाद जो वेट लॉस होता है उसको हम रिकवरी सर कैसे कर सकते हैं विद प्रोटीन इनटेक?
डायबिटीज, देखिए, डायबिटीज का डायग्नोसिस सबसे पहले होता है कि या किसी का कोई बहुत मोटा है तो उसको हो सकता है, या वेट लॉस हो रहा है. बहुत जो कार्डिनल सिम्टम होते हैं डायबिटीज के, वेट लॉस, बहुत प्यास लगना, बहुत भूख लगना, बहुत यूरिन आना. ठीक है, ये 3 मेन सिम्टम्स होते हैं. अगर किसी को है, कहते हैं कि उसको डायबिटीज के लिए चेक करा लो भाई. तो उसमें क्या होता है कि बहुत यूरिन आना, क्योंकि वो ग्लूकोज बहुत है, वो ग्लूकोज पूरा उसकी वजह से बहुत यूरिन आता है, तो वो वेट लॉस उसकी वजह से होता है मेनली. सो वो जो लॉस है, आप शुगर को कंट्रोल कर लो, वो लॉस अपने आप ठीक हो जाता है. बिकॉज वो लॉस आपका जो है, वो आपके फैट नहीं लॉस होता है उसमें, वो सिर्फ वाटर लॉस बहुत ज्यादा होता है बॉडी से बिकॉज ऑफ मोर यूरिनेशन. क्योंकि वो ग्लूकोज आता है, वो यूरिन में आता रहता है, और जितना ग्लूकोज, ऑस्मोटिक डायूरेसिस कहते हैं इसको, तो जितना आपको सोल्यूट डालोगे यूरिन में, उतना उसकी कॉन्सेंट्रेशन बढ़ जाती है, ऑस्मोलैलिटी बढ़ जाती है, और फिर वो उतना ज्यादा ही फ्लूइड को साथ खींच के ले आता है.
एंड सर उसके बाद हम मसल को गेन कर सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल गेन कर सकते हैं। जैसा मैंने बताया, ये स्ट्रेटेजीज और डाइट और एक्सरसाइज करेंगे तो मसल इंप्रूव होगा, तो आपकी शुगर की भी कंट्रोल बढ़िया रहेगा, आपकी कम से कम दवाइयों की जरूरत पड़ेगी या शायद ना पड़े।
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
Is it right that body produces its own protein?
Body produces its own protein to some extent because muscles keep on regenerating, right? Muscles keep on regenerating, but that is not too much, you know. That is why you need external protein
Good.
for maintenance also.
Thanks. And how does coffee and tea, is it how bad or good it is?
Well, see, coffee is good. I mean, the lot of new research says that for liver health, coffee is good because it decreases the inflammation in the liver, decreases the fat in the liver. There is data on that. Although it is a cross-sectional data, it is not a randomized clinical trial, which is the best evidence. It shows that people who drink more coffee, particularly black coffee, not adding cream and sugar to that, have a better liver health. The moment you add cream and sugar, that benefit goes down. Tea, the jury is open. Some people say tea is bad, many people say tea is good. Green tea, black tea, I mean, it's your choice. But there is coffee, definite evidence is there.
And milk, they say it has a lot of lactose, and I don't know about all this, so I was just wondering.
No, consumption of milk is not bad. One can take it, but generally, a lot of people take coffee with cream, not just milk, cream and sugar. That's a problem. That decreases the benefit basically.
Sir, can I ask one or two questions
Sure.
from my side? Sir, we hear a lot about type 3 diabetes. If you can just educate our population about it, I will be very thankful.
So nowadays type 5 is also described. The recent description is type 5 diabetes. Now type 1, when you don't have insulin, your body cells producing insulin are dead from the beginning. It happens as it's immune related. Yeah, some immune destruction has happened. Type 2 is when insulin resistance happens. Type 3 is generally, it is said as a diabetes which is secondary to something. I mean, something has happened which has caused the insulin producing cells to have a problem. It may be pancreatitis or it may be something else. Now type 5, which is now recently described, is something, it's diabetes which happens in lean individuals. In very initial, during the initial times, it was first described from India only, MRDM, malnutrition related diabetes mellitus. So that was the term which was given from India, but now the recent IDF says, the classification says, I mean, type 5. So it is underweight individuals or who are not obese, they developing this problem. And there again, it is related to a decrease in beta cell, the insulin producing cell mass, as well as resistance, and which these factors, the insulin resistance you don't expect happening in lean individuals. It happens in individuals with obesity, but that is seen in those individuals. Plus, the more component is beta cell dysfunction. That appears to be the more prominent cause rather than insulin resistance in this kind of a phenotype. It's not completely lost. The beta cell function is not completely lost like type 1, but it is much less. And the same situation like type 2 occurring in a lean individual.
For a layman, you had mentioned somewhere in your lecture that for about 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week, if you reduce the calorie intake, it has a impact on your weight loss, and but you might feel weak for a little while, a week or 2 week or 3 week. Is it sustainable? Can one do this for a longer period of time, and will he be normal after a while? And I mean, or when one feels weak, you should start eating sugar or creams or whatever it is, just I
Okay.
mean,
So what I mentioned was that daily calorie restriction. The first in mostly in diet, as I said, restrict the calories. If you're taking 2000 calories right now, cut down by 500-600, come down to 1400 or 1500 calories. Now the strategy could be in your daily meal, in your daily intake, you reduce 500 calories every day. Now that will lead to weight loss, but over a period of time, your body starts feeling that there is a decreased nutrient coming in. So why should I work at the same pace? If the fuel is coming less, I should stop or decrease my speed of functioning. So the body's metabolic rate goes down over a period of few days, and that is when when the BMR goes down, individual starts feeling fatigued. The body slows down and tries to do less exercise. It's a preservation mechanism, self preservation. So the BMR goes down, the body function slightly slows down, and that is the time one feels fatigued, easily tired, and all those things. Now if you remain there, you don't go back to your usual intake, over a period of time body senses this as normal, because body senses this as normal. From here you are coming here, so body will sense there is a decrease and it goes into a preservation mode. But if you continue out here, the body after some time will feel it's okay, this is normal. But the weight loss which happens initially, that gets plateaued, it further doesn't go down. Now whereas in 2 days, 5:2, that is intermittent fasting, so any 2 non-consecutive days if you reduce your calorie intake, you decrease the intake, decrease the fuel, but the body is not able to sense, because it's only short duration, only 1 day. So body is not able to sense that the fuel has decreased. So the metabolic rate goes on at the same pace, whereas the nutrient overall decreases. Right. So that is a strategy to not let the body know that nutrient is going down, but you should continue at your own pace and do that. This intermittent is more sustainable. That is why it has become so popular and so much studies are going on, that it does not let body adapt to decreased nutrition, and this may be better for a better weight loss.
got it. Thanks. And carbs, if you can just reflect a bit of your views on how much of carbs should be there. You talked about protein, but normally people talk a lot about carbs and fruits with a lot of fructose and all that. So these two areas, if you can talk about, I'll really appreciate. Thanks.
So carbs, 55%, 50 to 55% of your food, of the calories should be from carbs. That is, there's no doubt about it. There's no question about it. Now, what kind of carbs? If you have more of refined carbohydrates, that's a problem. Try to cut it down. Take more carbs which are complex carbohydrates. Grains, millets, although all of them have more fiber and complex carbohydrates. So refined carbohydrates you eat, they get absorbed and the energy goes immediately into the body. Complex carbohydrates, there's fiber also. So when you take that, it slows the absorption. The whole idea is to delay the food absorption into the body. So the refined ones is quickly absorbed, the quickly insulin shoots up. Quick spike of sugar and quick spike of insulin is there. But insulin cannot keep up. The sugar spike occurs so rapidly, but to sense and then insulin spike, there is a lag over there. So body is having more time in a high glucose range. And that is why if you have complex carbohydrates, what happens is that absorption occurs slowly, and that coincides with the body's insulin secretion to counteract that, or to send that glucose in the body, in the cells for utilization. So there the body will not be in a high glucose stage initially. So that coincides, and that is why more try to have more complex carbohydrates than simple carbohydrates. That is the whole idea. But proportion in your food should be about 50 to 55% of total calories. No doubt about it. Fruits, you can take any kind of a fruit, unless there are medical restrictions. Fruits, at least, as I said, your ideal plate should have at least 2 to 3 servings of fruits in a day.
I don't think so. There are any further questions. Thank you so much, sir, for all the patience with which you have answered all the questions. I'm really very grateful to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the thoughtful questions which contributed to a rich discussion. To formally convey our appreciation, I now invite Senior Faculty Professor S. Basu with Dr. Rajshri Agarwal and Dr. Mahesh to felicitate Dr. Nawal with token of respect and gratitude. Let's have a round of applause for them. And real world experiences with us. I would also like to thank our faculty members, students, staff, and all the attendees for their enthusiastic participation. A special thanks to Professor A.K. Nimma, the Deputy Director Operations, Professor Narayan Kiru, Dean Academics, Professor Shilpi Sharma, the Associate Dean, Manoj, ETSC team, Reena and Pavan from IIT Hospital, and the organizing team from IIT Hospital and the Outreach Office for their behind the scene efforts in making this session a success. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session of Arogya Health Talk series. We recently started a dedicated YouTube channel for the IIT Delhi Hospital. You can find the recorded sessions there. With that, we conclude the session, leaving you all with a beautiful quote. Obesity, don't let it grow. Choose fresh fruits, let the junk go. Walk a little, run or play. Keep your extra kilos away. Keep your extra kilos away. Keep your extra kilos away. Thank you so much.